Look around you right now. At the person driving the newest car on your street. At the person in the designer clothes at the coffee shop. At the person with the biggest house in your neighborhood. Now ask yourself one question. Are they rich? Or do they just look rich? Because those two things are not the same thing. And confusing them, it is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. David made this mistake for 11 years. He drove past a man every morning on his way to work. Same time, same junction, same battered old car, a dark green estate, one wing mirror held on with tape. The car was embarrassing by any modern standard. The man driving it wore the same jacket every day. He never appeared in a restaurant, never showed up at the networking events David attended. His office, when David finally saw it, was a modest rented room above a hardware shop. David assumed this man was struggling. He assumed this for 11 years. And then one afternoon, at a completely unrelated meeting, David saw the man's financial statement. His net worth was £47 million. David almost fell off his chair. He said, "That cannot be right." The accountant beside him smiled. He said, "That is not unusual." He said, "The people who look rich are usually the poorest people in the room. The people who are actually rich usually look like him." David drove home that evening and thought about every assumption he had ever made about wealth. Every person he had dismissed. Every person he had envied. Every car he had admired. Every house he had assumed represented success. And he realized, with the particular discomfort of a man whose entire model of the world has just been quietly dismantled, that he had been reading the signals of wealth completely wrong, his entire life. And tonight, we are going to show you what wealth actually looks like, how the genuinely wealthy think about money, appearance, and status, and the 7 signals of real wealth that almost nobody talks about, because they are invisible to everyone who is looking for the wrong thing. This is the video that changes how you see every person around you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Before we get into the 7 signals, welcome to Finext Wealth. If this is your first time here, we are genuinely glad you found you. This channel exists for one reason: to show the financial world as it actually is, not as we are sold it, not as it appears on the surface, but as it operates underneath, where the real decisions are made and the real wealth is built. Hit subscribe right now. Turn on the notification bell. And if you know someone who is spending money to look successful instead of building actual success, share this video with them before we get to signal number 1. Because signal number 1 is the one that will make them look at every expensive car they have ever admired in a completely different way. Now, back to David and the £47 million man in the battered green car. His name was Gerald. Gerald was 61 years old. He had started his first business at 26, a small property maintenance company. Not glamorous, not fashionable, nothing that would impress anyone at a dinner party. He fixed things. He maintained things. He showed up when other people's problems needed solving. He charged fairly. He worked methodically. He reinvested almost everything he earned. For 35 years. Not loudly. Not visibly. Not in any way that looked like success from the outside. David started asking questions. He found people who knew Gerald, who had worked with him, who had dealt with him over the years. And what he heard, from every single one of them, was the same. Gerald never spent money on things that did not build wealth. He drove the same car for 12 years because a new car depreciated the moment it left the forecourt. He wore the same jacket because the jacket still worked and buying a new one would not change any number in his financial life. He rented his office above a hardware shop because the rent was 60% cheaper than the nearest business park. And the 60% difference went directly into his investment account. Every month. Without exception. Gerald was not living below his means because he could not afford better. Gerald was living below his visible means because he understood something that most people never learn. That wealth and the appearance of wealth are not just different things. They are opposing forces. The more you spend on looking wealthy, the less wealth you actually build. And the most consistently wealthy people in the world have chosen, deliberately, purposefully, with complete financial clarity, to build the real thing over the visible thing. Every single time. David spent the next 3 months doing something unusual. He stopped looking at what people had and started watching how they behaved. He stopped reading financial headlines and started having honest conversations with people whose financial lives he respected. He stopped admiring visible success and started asking what was actually underneath it. And what he found was consistent across every genuinely wealthy person he encountered. 7 signals. Not one of them is visible from the outside. Not one of them flashy, expensive, or designed to impress. 7 quiet behaviors that show up, without exception, in the financial lives of people who have built real, lasting, generational wealth. And 7 corresponding behaviors that show up, without exception, in the financial lives of people who look wealthy, but are one bad month away from the floor. David wrote them down, and tonight, he is going to share them with you. Gerald's car was 12 years old. His competitor, a man who ran a similar business in the same area, drove a brand new Range Rover, leased at £940 a month, over 5 years. That is £56,400, on a vehicle that, by the end of the lease, belongs to no one. Gerald spent nothing on the car he drove for 12 years. The 60% he saved on office rent, combined with the lease he never took on a car he did not need, funded the deposit on his third investment property in year 7 of his business. That property, held for 25 years, is now worth £612,000. The Range Rover driver sold his business at 54. His net worth at sale, £420,000. Most of it from the business itself. Almost none from investments built during the business years. Gerald's net worth, $47 million. Same industry, same era, same starting conditions. Gerald bought assets. His competitor bought appearances. The cars look different from the outside. The bank accounts look incomprehensible from the inside. This is harder than it sounds, because every human being, without exception, has a deep, biologically hardwired need to be seen as successful by the people around them. It is not vanity. It is not a weakness. It is evolution. For most of human history, visible resources meant survival. Being seen to have enough meant safety. But in the modern financial world, that instinct is being exploited at an extraordinary scale. Every luxury brand, every lease agreement, every aspirational advertisement. It is designed to activate that ancient instinct, to make you spend money on visibility, because visibility used to mean something. Gerald turned that instinct off, not because he did not care about people, because he cared more about his financial future than about what strangers thought of his car. The genuinely wealthy people David encountered were almost universally indifferent to financial judgment from people who did not understand their strategy. The man in the battered car was not embarrassed. He was free. Free from the monthly payments that kept his competitor's calendar full. Free from the opinion of people who measured success in wheel size and watch brands. Genuinely, completely, financially free. David conducted an informal survey. He asked 43 people, a mix of high earners and modest earners. One question: what is your net worth right now, to the nearest £10,000? 31 of the 43 could not answer. Not approximately. Not roughly. They simply did not know. David then spoke to 11 people he knew to be genuinely wealthy. Every single one answered immediately. Not approximately. Precisely. Because wealthy people do not just have money. They manage money. And you cannot manage what you do not measure. Gerald knew his net worth to within £5,000 at any given moment. He knew his monthly passive income to the nearest 100. He knew his total asset value, his total liability, and his net position, the way a pilot knows their altitude. Not because it was impressive to know, because you cannot navigate to a destination you have not mapped. Most people spend more time planning a 2-week holiday than they spend understanding where they are financially. And then they wonder why they never arrive anywhere new. This one surprised David most. Gerald, the man in the battered car, the man above the hardware shop, had been quietly funding 3 children's university education for 11 years. Not publicly, not with a plaque on a wall or a press release. Just 3 young people from his neighborhood who could not afford to go. Going. Because of Gerald. David found this out by accident. He mentioned Gerald's name to a woman at a community event. She stopped. She said, "Gerald paid for my son's entire degree. He just appeared one day, said he had heard about the situation, asked if help would be welcome. We have never forgotten it. David drove home. He thought about all the wealthy-looking people he knew, and he could not identify a single comparable story. Not one. The people who spent the most on looking wealthy were also the people who gave the least. Not because they were bad people, but because looking wealthy is expensive. And when visibility consumes the budget, generosity gets crowded out. Gerald's generosity was affordable, because Gerald's lifestyle was modest. And his generosity was quiet, because Gerald had nothing to prove. There is a paradox at the heart of wealth that most people never notice. The people who talk about money the most usually have the least of it. The people who talk about money the least are usually thinking about it with extraordinary precision. Gerald rarely mentioned money in conversation. He never discussed his portfolio, never referenced his properties, never name-dropped his investment returns. But every decision Gerald made, from the car he drove to the office he rented to the contracts he accepted, was run through a precise financial filter. What does this cost? What does it return? What does it become? Every decision, every time, without making it visible, without making it a performance. The conversations about money that the genuinely wealthy have happen in spreadsheets, in quiet meetings, in the privacy of their own financial architecture, not at dinner tables, not on social media, not in the kind of conversations designed to impress. The loudest financial conversations you will ever hear are almost never the most financially significant. David counted. Gerald had 7 income streams at the time David discovered his net worth. Property rental, 4 properties. A percentage stake in 2 businesses he had advised and seeded. A small investment portfolio generating quarterly dividends. A licensing agreement on a maintenance process he had developed and patented in year 12. None of these required Gerald to be present. None of them required Gerald to wake up, get dressed, drive somewhere, and perform. They ran. Whether Gerald was at his desk or at his daughter's school play. Whether Gerald was awake or asleep. Whether Gerald was well or unwell. David thought about his own income. One stream. His salary, which required him to arrive at the same place at the same time, every working day of his life, and which would stop, completely, the moment he could not arrive. He thought about what would happen to his financial life if he could not work for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year. He already knew the answer, and the answer clarified, with brutal simplicity, exactly why Gerald's battered car and modest office were not signs of financial struggle. They were signs of financial intelligence so complete that Gerald had not needed to trade his time for income in over a decade. This is the signal that took David the longest to understand, because it is not about behavior. It is about orientation. Most people, even intelligent, financially aware, hard-working people, are playing a game defined by other people. A game called, looks successful. A game with rules like, drive a car that signals status, live in a postcode that commands respect, wear clothes that communicate ambition. Gerald was not playing that game. He had not played it for 30 years. Gerald was playing a completely different game. A game called, build something that lasts. With different rules, different metrics, different definitions of winning. In Gerald's game, a battered car that saves £600 a month is a winning move. A modest office that frees capital for investment is a brilliant strategy. A jacket worn for 5 years is a sign of someone whose identity does not depend on the approval of strangers. In the game most people are playing, Gerald looks like he is losing. In the game Gerald is actually playing, Gerald won decades ago. And the most important financial decision any person can make is to decide, clearly, consciously, deliberately, which game they are playing. Because you cannot win a game you have not chosen, and you cannot choose a game you cannot see. David went home after learning about Gerald. He sat at his kitchen table with a blank notepad, and he did something he had not done in years. He wrote down, not his income, not his expenses, his net worth, the real number, assets minus liabilities, the number that told him not what he earned, but what he had actually built. He looked at the number for a long time. He thought about his car, reasonably new, monthly payment. He thought about his clothes, regularly updated, each item a small performance. He thought about his last 3 social media posts. 2 of them from restaurants, 1 from a hotel. None of them are cheap. All of them, he realized, performing for an audience that did not pay his bills. And then he thought about Gerald. £47 million. Battered car. Modest office. Same jacket. 3 children through university without announcement. And David made a decision. Not dramatic. Not immediate. Not a complete overnight transformation. Just a direction. He opened his banking app. He looked at his car payment. He began to calculate what it would look like to own the car outright. To redirect the monthly payment into an investment account. To start, quietly, without announcement, playing a different game. The game nobody else could see. The game that Gerald had been winning for 35 years. While everyone drove past him at the junction and felt sorry for the man in the battered green car. The richest people you will ever meet will probably not look rich. They will drive modest cars, wear unremarkable clothes, work from unimpressive offices. They will not talk about their portfolio at dinner. They will not post their returns on social media. They will not need you to know what they are worth. Because people who need you to know what they are worth usually cannot afford the gap between what they are worth and what they appear to be worth. The genuinely wealthy have closed that gap by refusing to spend money on the appearance of wealth and investing every pound that gap would have cost into things that grow quietly while the world drives past. Let us say the 7 signals one final time. Signal 1, they buy assets, not appearances. Signal 2, they are unbothered by what people think of their money. Signal 3, they know their net worth at all times. Signal 4, they are quietly generous in ways nobody sees. Signal 5, they rarely talk about money but think about it constantly. Signal 6, they have multiple income streams that do not require their presence. Signal 7, they are playing a game nobody else can see. 7 signals. Available to every person watching this video. Not one of them requires a large income. Not one of them requires a perfect starting point. They require only a decision to stop performing wealth and start building it. Before you leave today, 3 things. First, hit the like button right now. If Gerald's story changed how you see the people around you, if any of these 7 signals made you look at your own financial life differently, hit like, because it tells us this video matters, and it helps other people who need it find it. Second, subscribe to Finext Wealth right now. This channel is built for every person who wants to understand how money actually works. Underneath the surface, behind the appearances, past the signals that mislead. We are here for you, and we want you to stay. Third, drop a comment below this video. Tell us the one financial topic you want us to cover next. What is the question you have been carrying? What is the story you want told? Write it below. We read every single comment. Your question, your story, might become our next video. This channel grows because of you. Welcome to Finext Wealth. Thank you for watching today. From all of us. Genuinely, completely, deeply. Thank you. Gerald drove his battered green car for 12 years. You might start looking at the battered green cars around you very differently now.